the deserter suddenly ran into another deserter deep in the forest. Already panicked inside, the two of them froze in place, their eyes locked tightly on each other. In the very next second, both of them reacted and raised their guns almost at the same time. Fortunately, the sharp-eyed Anton was just a fraction faster than the other man. Seeing this, the other deserter had no choice but to obediently raise his hands slowly. Anton then cautiously moved closer to the deserter. In order to survive in the forest, Anton transferred all the useful gear and supplies from the deserter onto himself. But when he saw the pleading look in the other man's eyes, he could not bring himself to be cruel, and in the end handed over the compass he was holding to the deserter. He told the deserter that if he walked north from here, he could leave the forest and reach a small town within half a day. Right after that, Anton quickly stood up and continued heading south, running deeper into the forest. Not long after, Anton unexpectedly discovered the body of a regular army soldier beside a small stream. To avoid drawing attention, Anton, who belonged to the SS, struggled to strip off the uniform, then endured the pain of his injuries and painfully changed into the regular army uniform. By evening, Anton unexpectedly found a wooden cabin hidden in a valley. He immediately stood up with joy in his heart, then cautiously approached the cabin step by step. He moved his feet inch by inch and slowly walked into the cabin. He carefully searched every corner of the cabin, but did not see a single person. Completely exhausted, he finally put down his gear and prepared to rest here for a short while. But with both his body and mind worn out, and his injuries weighing on him, Anton gradually drifted into a deep, hazy sleep. When he slowly opened his eyes again, he saw a woman rummaging through the backpack he had just placed on the table. Weak and injured, Anton tried to raise his hand to stop her, but the woman pressed Anton's own gun straight against his head. Fortunately, it seemed that the woman had never taken a life before, and after hesitating for a long time, she did not dare to pull the trigger. Seeing this, Anton seized the opportunity and gently pushed the gun barrel away from his head. He then explained to the woman that he only wanted to rest here for a while and had no ill intentions at all. The woman also noticed the injuries on Anton's body. When she learned that Anton was a deserter, she lowered her guard and began carefully tending to his wounds. The next morning, after regaining some strength, Anton slowly stood up, preparing to leave the cabin and continue his escape. But he soon discovered that the woman had taken his gun. Anton once again assured her that he would never harm her. All he wanted now was to get his gun back and leave this place to keep running. However, the woman said that she lived alone in the cabin and needed a weapon to protect herself. She also said that since she had treated Anton's wounds, taking his gun was her way of charging for medical care. Hearing her words, Anton was completely stunned. He immediately stood up and began searching all around the cabin for the gun the woman had hidden. To vent the anger burning inside him, he deliberately knocked over and smashed the furniture and objects inside the cabin. With a helpless expression, the woman told Anton that she had bandaged his wounds and he would leave the gun to her, calling it a fair trade. Burning with anger, Anton did not argue at all. He walked straight up to her and asked again where the gun was, but the woman was determined to keep the gun for herself. Enraged, Anton suddenly slapped her hard across the face. Right after that, in front of the woman, he grabbed the photos from her beloved album and threw them at her one by one. For a woman who lived alone here to avoid the war, photographs of her family were the most precious things in her heart. In the end, the woman reluctantly returned Anton's gun. After getting his gun back, Anton, to thank the woman for bandaging his wounds, voluntarily gave her a dagger. Although the dagger was not the weapon the woman truly wanted, she still slowly reached out and accepted it. Not long after leaving the cabin, Anton unexpectedly saw the body of a German soldier. He cautiously approached the body, only to see the soldier tightly clutching a compass in his hand. He slowly turned the body over, and sure enough, lying before him was the deserter whose equipment and supplies he had taken away. At that moment, guilt and remorse crushed every cell in Anton's body. If he had not taken the deserter's weapon, perhaps the man would not have died here. He suddenly thought of the woman in the cabin who wanted a gun to protect herself. He turned his head to look toward the direction of the cabin, then looked back at the deserter's body lying beside him. In the end, Anton stood up, changed direction, and ran back toward the cabin. But when he returned, he suddenly discovered that there was not only the woman inside the cabin. To avoid exposing himself, Anton, as a deserter, stayed hidden on the hillside until the young girl left, and only then quietly made his way back to the cabin. The wounds that had just been bandaged on his body began bleeding again from all the running and jolting. The woman who lived alone in the cabin once again carefully bandaged Anton's wounds, just like she had the day before. This time, however, She did not ask Anton to leave his weapon as payment for medical care. Instead, she silently sat by the window, organizing the photo album that Anton had destroyed earlier. Seeing this scene, the kind-hearted Anton began to regret his earlier impulsive act of ruining the album, because for the woman living alone in the cabin, the album was undoubtedly the most precious thing deep in her heart. To make up for his reckless destruction of the album, Anton finally agreed to give the pistol to the woman for self-defense. The woman also took the initiative to suggest that Anton could stay in the cabin to recover until he was fully healed. From then on, Anton lived a quiet and peaceful life in the cabin together with the woman. It was as if the chaos and bloodshed of the war had completely faded away from his world. The two of them gradually let go of their earlier conflicts and barriers, and as time passed, their relationship grew closer and closer. They told each other about their families and shared their own stories. They practiced shooting together, repaired the roof together, washed clothes and cooked together. Just like a reclusive couple bound by hardship, not only did they look like a married couple on the surface, their hearts also began to develop feelings and dependence on each other. The spark of love had quietly grown stronger, ready to ignite at any moment. Just as Anton was immersed in sweetness and happiness, the young girl who came every week to deliver food to the woman gradually entered Anton's life. In the past, every time the girl came to deliver food, she ignored Anton completely and never spoke to him. It was not until she learned that Anton was a deserter that she finally lowered her guard and took the initiative to befriend him. During one conversation with the girl, Anton unexpectedly learned that the woman who had been living with him in the cabin was actually Jewish. After the girl left, Anton instantly fell into deep inner conflict. Deep down, Anton had always harbored intense hatred toward Jewish people. Yet now he had fallen in love with a Jewish woman. This left him unsure of how to face the situation. When the woman learned that her identity had been exposed, she too fell into helpless torment. The two of them went from sharing everything to suddenly having nothing to say to each other. Although they continued living together in the cabin afterward, they barely spoke anymore. They often sat alone in separate corners, lost in their own thoughts. The cabin that had once been filled with laughter instantly became deathly silent. That night, after days of accumulating silence, their argument finally erupted. Anton angrily denounced Jewish people as parasites, calling them bloodsuckers and the cancer of Germany. The woman cursed the German army for slaughtering Jewish civilians and destroying Jewish lives. Their argument grew more and more intense, yet neither of them could convince the other. No one knew how long they argued, but eventually they slowly fell silent. By then the woman was already in tears, and Anton's eyes were burning red. The love in their hearts and the hatred born from ethnic division twisted and struggled endlessly within them. But in the end, they still broke through all barriers and chose to be together. At that moment, everything in the world no longer mattered. All that existed in their hearts was love, and only each other. However, after a night of warmth, when the woman regained her senses, she suddenly saw the SS bodyguard insignia beneath Anton's arm. In that instant, the woman completely panicked. She used all her strength to shove Anton away, because she had believed Anton was a regular army soldier and a deserter, and that was why she had decided to be with him. But now she realized that Anton was a member of the SS, the very force responsible for killing Jewish people, and even part of its elite guard, and her parents and younger brother had all died under SS gunfire. She cursed Anton as a shameless monster who slaughtered her family and deceived her emotions. As she spoke, she raised the pistol Anton had given her, but after hesitating for a long time, she could never bring herself to pull the trigger. In the end, she cursed at Anton and told him to leave, to disappear completely from her life. As she spoke, she fired several shots toward Anton's side. With no other choice, Anton fled the cabin in panic, but not long after, he heard two gunshots coming from the direction of the cabin behind him. The sudden sound of gunfire filled Anton with anxiety and turmoil, and in the end he desperately turned back and ran toward the cabin once more. He rushed back quickly, cautiously peering inside, only to see the one person he least wanted to see. After a brief moment of thought, Anton finally gathered his courage and slowly pushed open the wooden door. Sitting inside the cabin was George, the man who had been hunting him relentlessly, and the Jewish woman who had cared for him for days, whom he loved and hated, was standing there in panic, forced to clean the wound on George's arm. It turned out that Anton and George, who was now hunting him, had once been the closest of friends. They had joined the SS Guard unit together, but faced with the endless daily killings of Jewish people, the kind-hearted Anton could no longer endure the torment, so he tried to escape the SS together with his friend George. Yet George was a loyal Nazi. Not only did he refuse to leave the SS with Anton, he even attacked Anton from behind when Anton turned to leave, because in his eyes, Anton had betrayed the leader and betrayed Nazi Germany. Wounded by the attack, Anton narrowly escaped and fled into the forest, where he was later rescued by the Jewish woman living alone in the cabin. What Anton never expected was that after all this time, George still refused to let him go and had tracked him all the way to the cabin. Anton once again tried to persuade his friend George to abandon the killing and leave the SS with him, but no matter how he tried, George remained unmoved. Not only that, George also noticed the woman's Jewish identity. Just as he was about to seriously interrogate her and determine whether she was Jewish, he suddenly heard a noise outside the cabin. Without hesitation, the alert George raised his gun and rushed out of the cabin. Anton and the Jewish woman seized the opportunity to search for weapons, preparing to fight back against George, who clearly had no intention of sparing them. Just as Anton found a suitable iron rod, George returned to the cabin. He had also taken the young girl who periodically brought food to the Jewish woman hostage. With no choice, Anton dropped the iron rod to protect the girl's life. The sharp-eyed George then discovered clothes and food inside the backpack behind the girl. He immediately turned to look at the Jewish woman beside him. To save the life of the hostage girl, the Jewish woman finally admitted her Jewish identity. George never imagined that while coming to capture the SS deserter Anton, he would also end up arresting a Jewish woman. Overjoyed, he forced all three of them out of the cabin. He then solemnly announced that Anton was a traitor to Germany. The woman was Jewish, the girl had aided a Jewish person, and all three were sentenced to death, to be carried out immediately. At the critical moment, Anton gathered his courage and resolutely stepped closer and closer to his friend George. He told George that he was willing to accept execution, but begged him to spare the girl and the Jewish woman. As he spoke, Anton slowly used his own body to shield the girl who was about to be killed behind him. George fell silent for a moment, then slowly aimed the gun barrel at the spot where Anton had been shot during the earlier ambush. In a moment of hesitation and fury, he pulled the trigger, but the bullet pierced through Anton's body and struck the girl, killing her instantly. In that moment, Anton fell into complete despair. Despite his selfless resolve, he still failed to save the kind-hearted, innocent, and vibrant young girl. Taking advantage of Anton's shock and confusion, George immediately tied him up. He then dragged the Jewish woman into the room, preparing to slowly torment her for his own pleasure. When Anton finally came back to his senses, he realized that the girl's body was nowhere to be seen. At that moment, he remembered that the girl had once said that if danger came, she could pretend to be dead to survive. So he softly called out the girl's name, and sure enough, the next second she appeared beside him and desperately helped untie the ropes binding him. Only then did Anton carefully realize that the girl had not been hit by the bullet at all, and the bright red blood on her body was actually his. Anton then quickly rushed to the woodshed, took out the weapon he had once seized from another deserter, and slowly approached the cabin together with the girl. They saw that George was preparing to use a rope to hang the Jewish woman alive. At the critical moment, Anton immediately told the girl to run behind the cabin and smash the window with a piece of wood to draw George's attention. Sure enough, the alert George heard the noise, instantly dropped the rope, and hid. Anton seized the opportunity, rushed into the room, and launched a fierce attack on George, but the vigilant George hid at the corner of the staircase, and even after several shots, Anton failed to kill him. With no other choice, Anton could only rescue the Jewish woman and flee the cabin first. But just as they ran out of the cabin, Anton's gun ran out of ammunition. In the very next second, the woman was struck by George's bullet. At the moment of life and death, the woman signaled for Anton to leave her behind and escape alone. But how could Anton ever abandon her? In the end, Anton was hit again by George and collapsed to the ground. The woman seized the opportunity, pulled out the dagger Anton had given her earlier, and launched a fatal attack on George. But in the end, she still failed to kill the strong and powerful George. She herself was pinned beneath him, his hands clamped tightly around her neck. No matter how desperately she struggled, she could not break free. At that moment of mortal danger, a gunshot once again echoed through the valley. Using his last remaining strength, Anton picked up the pistol George had just dropped and finally killed him. But Anton himself, due to his severe injuries, no longer had any chance to survive. I am a film enthusiast. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.